Hello, everybody. It's Friday, August 25th, 2023, and this is today's news. And the news of today is the history of tomorrow. I'm your host, Larry Schweikart, bringing you all the headlines, catch the full stories, the links, and all my nicknames below here on uncoverdc.com. I have to admit I have expanded and enhanced the nickname for Nikki Haley, i.e. Knick-Knack. Now it's Knick-Knack, Paddywhack, give a yucca bomb. But anyway, in political news, President Trump turned himself in at Fulton County, providing one of the most iconic mug shots in history, up there with Martin Luther King Jr. They're going to regret this. Mark my words. In the debate post-mortem, Newsweek says the winner of the debate was President Trump. Trump's interview with the Tuckster was the most watched interview ever, beating Michael Jackson and the Ope. 204 million views. Now, I've now seen an updated number of 238 million views, but remember that sites such as Rumble, CloutHub, and especially foreign sites can restream this without violating copyrights, and so it's probably well over 300 million views internationally in total. It absolutely crushed the GOP debate on Foe, where it was noted that many in the audience were watching the Trump interview on their phones. So this poll from 538 says that DeSantis and Ramaswamy were the best in the debate, that they won. However, remember, they're only surveying those who watched the debate, not the 204 or 238 million who watched Trump. From the same poll, the most important issues, and this is interesting: cutting government, staying out of foreign wars, inflation, wokeism, and combating political extremism, i.e. fascist Antifa and the fascist BI. Those are the top issues from those who were polled. Beating rutabaga, way down in the list. Note that dismantling the deep state didn't even appear in these voter scorecards, again reflecting who was watching this poll. Asked for his assessment, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said of the debate, out of sync with the mood of the country. It began with a request for a comment on rich men north of Richmond. Candidates could have talked about wages, housing costs, food costs, childcare costs. Nothing about systemic corruption enriching the elites as the middle class fall into poverty. Bingo, Bobby, you be right. In a poll taken just before the debate, President Trump now leads Ron DeSantis by 36 in Florida. There's a Chinese exodus of young men, many of them coming through our southern U.S. border. An invasion? Some might think so. As Robert Barnes pointed out, namely that this was illegal, Jack Smith had to terminate his D.C. grand jury in the classified documents case because it was an out-of-state grand jury. He was challenged by a judge. The grand jury cannot continue to fish for charges after the indictment out of state. A hip four-star New Kabul, it's New York, hotel was converted into a migrant shelter. Get used to it, subjects. You have no say in your government. When Vivek Ramaswamy said the U.S. government, quote, lied to us about 9/11, he was referring to a meeting between, I'm sorry, start that again. When Vivek Ramaswamy said the U.S. government lied to us about 9/11, he was referring to a meeting in Los Angeles between a Saudi graduate student and two Saudi hijackers who crashed into the Pentagon later. New information now suggests that the CIA, working illegally on American soil, was trying through this Saudi intel officer to recruit terrorists who would infiltrate terrorist networks. Typically, the CIA did not inform the FBI what it was doing. The House Judiciary Committee has subpoenaed Citibank over data it shared with the fascist BI over Patriot Day J6 festivities. New Beirut, otherwise known as Seattle, has hired unarmed, quote, alternate response teams to respond to 9/11 calls. I'd love to see what happens when they encounter the benign and peaceful armed thugs of Seattle. Groomer City, San Francisco, finally tried to do something about its homeless camps, and then a judge prohibited sweeping them out. Looks like they're stuck. Oh, too bad. Speaking of homeless criminal illegals, Mayor Eric the Red Adams demanded that Governor Kathy Hochulaga use emergency powers to force all the residents of New York to accept illegals. Well, is all of New York a sanctuary city or just New Kabul there, Eric? The illicit Georgia DA is seeking an October 2023 trial date for the Trump case after one of the defendants wanted to have a speedier trial. This is going to be so messed up. They're going to be involved in motions until 2030. In Transoid news, a man was removed from a Texas school board meeting for reading from a Transoid book, Flamer. Seems it's okay for kiddies to read this, but if adults let everybody know what's in the books, well, they must be silenced. At one point he read, quote, "Who wants my hot wiener?" He wasn't talking about Oscar Mayer. In culture news, a look at modern seminaries in the U.S. shows that all 6 of the Southern Baptist Church's seminaries are in the top 10, that Liberty University has a total enrollment of 3,500, dwarfing all the others, and that although there are 60 million Catholics in the U.S., but only 13 million Southern Baptists have almost double the number of seminarians as Catholic priests. Again, this was predictable. A former member of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America called Jesus mean, cruel, troubling, and even a little racist. In economic news, the latest 5 interesting things for the middle of the week, a column by Noah Smith, notes that the left's latest characterization of work as bull crap jobs isn't helpful. It's hurting them. T-Mobile is laying off 5,000 employees. Maybe they'd like one of those bullcrap jobs. In its quest for necessary cobalt, the U.S. is coming face to face with the fact that the Congo, one of the only places to obtain cobalt, mines its minerals with children reminiscent of the English coal miners of the 1800s. Betcha they'd like one of those bullcrap jobs that the Americans don't want. The ad firm behind the disastrous Bud Light commercial fired 13 staffers after a lavish trip to the French Riviera. Can't make this stuff up. Another woke company, this time aptly named Dick's Sporting Goods, meets the market as its profit fell 23% in the last quarter and its stock prices dropped from $141 to $108. Good. In international news, a Canadian court said that Dr. Jordan Peterson must undergo re-education after saying true things in public. And Canada slips into fascism. Saudi Arabia and Iran have joined the BRICS group. Now, wildfires in British Columbia. How long before we learn that, as in France, all of these are set intentionally? Is Happy Tummy Loaf, a bread made by an Irish baker, the key to solving irritable bowel syndrome? India has become the 4th country to successfully land on the moon. In entertainment news, Carlos Santana said that men are men and women are women and transoids should stay out of the closet because transoids are transoids, something like that. He's joined by Alice Cooper, who worried that being a transoid is a fad. He repeated correct bathroom predator tales, despite the loopy Rolling Stone, now the establishment mouthpiece, saying otherwise. This one warms my heart. Disney stock has closed at the lowest level since 2014. Keep it up, groomers. In China virus news, the wheel of justice turns slowly, but is turning. AstraZeneca, makers of the China virus vax, is facing 2 lawsuits over its vaxes in England. Remember, tobacco lawsuits, all it takes is one crack in the dam and the whole thing comes down. Over 370 people are charged with stealing $836 million in China virus relief funds, including gang members who use the money to pay for murders. And finally, Americans may be limited to just 2 beers a week under strict new booze guidelines from Rutabaga's Booze Czar. I don't know, that isn't even really an appetizer at a tailgate party, but I guess people could substitute whiskey. Anyway, that's today's news, the news of today's the history of tomorrow. I'm your host, Larry Schweikart, right here on uncoverdc.com 5 days a week. Help me out, buy me a coffee, help me make this book into a feature film. I know a lot of you are out there looking at this. Watch the trailer, it's awesome. Help us do this, and I'll see you guys back here on Monday.